All right, we're back for part number 3 of Managing Information Systems. We're on chapter number 10. We're talking about the building an information system. And in this part, we're going to start off talking about another methodology. Okay, sorry, I hit the pause button, and now I'm going to go back through this. So the economics feasibility, the cost analysis has to be conducted. To conduct a feasibility, we've got different financial ways we can determine that. If you're in accounting or finance or business, you probably recognize these. The payback analysis, the net present value, when are you going to get a return on your investment, what's the initial rate of return. All these are tools that you can implement or supplement your planning process with. So it's definitely something that you want to add. And remember, if you get a question from management during the last part of the planning phase, and the management says, well, what's our return on our investment here, and you don't know what it is, the management's going to say, well, I'm not going to proceed. I'm not going to give this a go. It's a no-go because I don't know what the return on the investment is. So my point here is during the planning phase is probably the most critical, because we cannot light the fire to get this project off the ground without being very, very careful and checking every possible question that we could anticipate coming up. And a lot of times that comes through experience. I've been through so many of these proposals and processes. I've learned over the years a lot of tricks and ways of coming up and deflecting and to try to get a successful outcome. All right, let's have a look at the next one. Cost benefit analysis, or CBA report. Now this is a cost. How much does it cost for what the benefit you're going to get? And you want to put that in a quantifiable way to show management. So what you're doing here is it's used to sell basically the system to the top management. You're trying to say to them, hey, in this early planning phase, this is why I need a go decision on implementing a new system, because the amount of money we're going to spend is going to far outweigh the benefits. Now, when I went to management with my proposal to create a certification support system, a certification system, there was no direct cost. We weren't charging students for this. So we weren't generating any money. So I really had to sell administration on the idea that this was something that's going to benefit the college. That meant that Douglas College had an internal industry certification system that they could then tell their employers. Like, a lot of people come to Douglas to hire students, and we could then advertise and say, look, we are getting industry certifications for these students. And I got information from those stakeholders that said, from those companies that said they really wanted that. So that was the benefit. It wasn't a direct financial benefit, it was an indirect benefit. But I sold them on that idea, and and management could see clearly that was a clear benefit for the cost that I was budgeting. So they gave me a budget to build that system, which I ran for a couple of years. But like I said again, I did it off the side of my desk. It was a lot of work, and to be honest with you, I couldn't keep up with it anymore, unfortunately, because it was a great thing. Now, this is a pretty easy one. Technical feasibility involves the IT people. So like all these feasibility reports involve different groups, stakeholders, and you could be part of one of these. So you might be able to chime in. So you want to determine in the feasibility whether the new technology, this new system, is going to be able to be supported with the current infrastructure that you guys have right now. If you have to purchase a brand new computer system to run the MIS system, well, that's going to completely change the budget and could have dire consequences. All right, so does the organization or the organizations that lack the time or people to implement the new system might lack technical feasibility? So in my case, I kind of got caught up with the feasibility of my system because I didn't have the personnel to help me implement the new system effectively. I was looking around for more support. I was trying to find other faculty, say, hey, do you like this idea? I went to department meetings, I went to management, and I tried to get support. and I couldn't find any volunteers. So in a sense, this was the Achilles heel to that system. And there are so many Achilles heels that can pop up during this process. All right, well, this is just a technical feasibility. Do you have the technical hardware capacities? Do you have enough memory or hard drive capacity? Is your processing power enough? Do you have the right operating system, etc., to run it? So you have to make sure that your minimum requirements. Now, when you guys are doing your research project, during the installation, they'll say you must have a computer that has the following hardware specifications. And most computers today run most systems out there, so we don't really see this as much of a problem anymore, especially because there's decentralized processing. A lot of processing happens on the cloud, and you guys are looking at software as a service, managing information system. So the system requirement really isn't that much of a problem anymore. All right, let's move on to the operational feasibility. Like, who are the people? Who's going to operate it? And now we're getting a little bit into the politics of how systems work. And you might think, politics with managing information systems? How does that work? But people can become very protective and funny when it comes to the system they already use. Some of you might have experienced this. Maybe you guys like a particular browser and you just like the browser because you've learned how it works. You know all its little nuances. And then someone comes up and says, okay, we want you to use a different browser. You think, no, I don't want to use a different browser. I like my browser. But there's a new browser out there that works even better, or the company uses it. So do you have the right people to run it? Also, these systems can have impacts with your customers. And that is something that I guess can be overlooked, because sometimes I've made this mistake. I've looked at things with blinders on, you might say. I look at things from my own perspective. But if I was really to do my homework and look at people from outside doing a proper survey, collecting enough customer information or student information, how would they react to the system? You might get better buy-in. In fact, you can have people from outside the company that really like the new system pushing management as well. So you can build allies in that way as well. Do you have enough time? Now, the time is another person. The scheduling feasibility, now we're involving people that do project management. Some of you might be taking the project management program and doing the project management professional, the PMP. And if you're doing PMP, that's great. That's a great industry certification. I wish we were still doing it in our area, but I think Douglas still does PMP. Anyway, you're going to have you could have a project manager involved. Now, that could be you as well, or it could be a separate person. Sometimes projects are so big they need a separate project manager. And project managers are under a lot of pressure. This is not an easy job. They get paid very well, but they are under a lot of pressure because they've got deadlines. This is a deadline-driven profession. And they're constantly checking their emails. And I know I have a couple friends that are project managers, and they do these large projects, and they get complete burnout at the end of them. They get paid very well, they get burnt out, and they end up heading off to Hawaii and trying to recover after the end of some of these things. So anyway, if you're in project management, I don't know if you can relate to that or not, but that's been my experience with my projects and also with friends I've had working on project management. Now, if you're in project management, there's lots of project management tools. One I would highly recommend, is Microsoft Project. Now, if you've already studied project management, you're probably going to learn Microsoft Project. I would not encourage you to learn it again. I want you to learn another project management system that's on the market. And there's lots of them. There's lots of cloud-based ones. I would encourage you to definitely go look into other project management tools that are out there. So if you're in project management, do that. But back to the scheduling and feasibility is they put together all of the tasks that need to be done to get the project implemented, and they scale it out using tools like Gantt charts to put out times and tasks and priorities, etc. And this is an entire course you guys can take, not just or an entire program, not just a course. So this is a whole study on its own. Legal feasibility. Now, we have a legal department and consultants at Douglas. So anytime we implement a new system, we run it through the legal concerns to see if there's any legal or ethical issues that may need to be addressed. So they will go through. And as I've mentioned before, this FIPPA is that Freedom of Information Protection Policy Act that all Canadian institutions, post-secondary institutions, are obligated to follow. And if we break that, there could be consequences. So any system that involves data processing and output needs to rely, for example, within Canada. If it leaves Canada, we could be in trouble. So we need to consider very carefully our risk management. What are the risks? What is the risk if we don't implement the new system? What is the risk if we do implement the system? These are all questions. And really, that's where I'm going with this. You got to think about questions. And the more questions you can come up with, especially in these meetings, the better it is. A lot of times I'll pre-think questions and I'll pre-think answers, and I'll throw out a question, and then I'll come up with some answers and solutions in a conversation to guide these meetings. But risk management is a very, very important one. And a lot of people don't really think of the risk when they're doing things. They just think, oh, that's just, okay, we'll worry about that later. But if you do it later, you might build a complete system that might put you in a legal peril. So it needs to be checked off. And normally companies will have a risk management department that will advise you. And that's going to bring us to the end of the planning phase. And this planning phase, as I've just gone through, is quite extensive. We haven't even gotten to the actual, any of the analysis. All we're doing right now is the planning, the brainstorming of the ideas, collecting all that information, because that information that you've collected during the planning stage all has to be correlated in a very easy to understand, readable format to present to management. And the end result of this really is a report that you're going to present to management. Now, what are you guys going to do in this course? I've asked you to do a 5-minute presentation, which in a sense is going to be your presentation to management. You're going to present to me what you guys have researched. I've given you a template and guidelines of how I want that organized, videotaped, and presented. So watch those videos on my YouTube channel so you guys can formulate this. And it's not just for marks. I really do think that this is a valuable exercise for all students, because this is very practical of what you're going to encounter when you're out there in the work world. All right, so that pretty much ends off the end of the planning phase, which is now that report that we developed, and all that planning is going to be now the input for phase number 2, which is the analysis. Now, I want to get into this in the next video because I think it's just a good place to stop, even though it's only 13-ish minutes. I will put this in the next video. We'll do this on part number 4.